What's up, you amazing hackers? My name is the thexssrat, and today I'm going to prove to you why that is my name. My name is the thexssrat, that is my name. Alright, amazing hackers. Hope you're all doing well today. Thank you so much for joining. You know what I'm going to do? Why not? Let's just put it there like that. There we go. There we have some nice background things to check out, don't we? Hope you're all doing well today. Thank you so much for joining me on this wonderful occasion. I really appreciate it, amazing hackers. So, I'm just going to straight up drop it. A lot of you guys probably already know what my little secret is here, but I wanted to announce it anyway on an official YouTube stream because I think it's important to do that. You guys know that over the years I've tried to make my courses as accessible as possible. I pretty much have been like, okay, let's try to make no bullshit hacking tutorials as good as possible. Okay, so the thing is that the problem with that is that it's not that easy always to do. Of course, we all know that. It took me quite a few years to get to a proper syllabus of what I really wanted to teach around API hacking, because I have done attempts over the years to bring out a good API hacking course, but with that I feel like I haven't been able to deliver up to the quality that I wanted to deliver. Now, I think certification, education, they should all be cheap. Not cheap, but accessible. That's the thing. They should be accessible. That's my opinion on that. And I feel a lot of you guys probably feel the same way. And then you look at things like OSCP without throwing any hate at them, because they're still one of the industry leading certificates around this, but it's like thousands of dollars. Like, what the fuck is the problem here? I mean, I know it's aimed at companies. It's not aimed at people like us. I get that. We are students. We want to take certifications with our own money as well, not just the company's money, right? But that's a hell of a lot to pay for yourself, don't you think? Well, the thing with that is that I think that you should have like a cheap, affordable, quality education. So I want to give you that. The education is one thing, but what I also want to give you is just a little bit of a screensaver. There we go. That's something I'm developing, so you can have like a little bit of background. I wanted to give you a certification that is affordable, entry level, aimed at entry level, I should say. It doesn't just cover the entry level stuff, but it's aimed at getting everyone on board. And we are talking about, so what we try to do with this certification this time is, let me just first of all tell you guys the price. So if you want to have the full certification, it is $50 for the exam and the materials on top of that. But I'm going to drop a coupon in the chat below, which makes it, which is 80% off. It's basically a launch offer, and it's valid for the live stream. I'm going to keep it valid for a little while after that, right? But the thing is that, oh hey, Unknown Stone Age man. Yeah, of course I'll open another spot. I've been giving away 2 spots as well, which is why the other ones were disappearing. But like the thing is, if I give away a spot to like a family member, the problem is it also disappears for other people. So I'll definitely reopen that. Sorry about that. I totally forgot. I keep forgetting about that kind of stuff. Anyway, So what's included in this bundle is also the same. So if you have the Endless bundle, don't get this extra. It is included in your Endless bundle. You should also see it in your product page if you have the Endless bundle. And that's the beauty of it. Like, there's like, I believe 400 people which can take their exam. We've developed 5 different exam machines which are based on what we feel like is the OWASP Top 10 2019 and 2023. They're bigger, like quote unquote, bigger APIs, but I'll show you what I mean with that. So the prices, like I said, is in my opinion, at least really affordable. Why is that? Because with the advent of technology, for us, it's easier to do this. For us, it's easier to create exams than it ever has been before. Not that they're bad, believe me, because they've gone through several stages of review. We make sure that everything is as expected for all of these chapters. I do first an internal review, then I do the external review. But what is Copy going to cover? What are we going to cover with this? For like I said, we're going to start with the most basic stuff. And if you want to learn this on your own, of course, dude. Like, that's the thing. I don't want to hide the syllabus from anyone. I just want to give you guys the option of getting good standard, industry standard certification. And that's what we try to build here. Because as you can see, we start with what is an API, what is SOAP versus REST, and how do you authenticate. I often see that when people try to attack APIs, they don't even really know how to authenticate properly, which is of course step number 1. How will you attack it if you can't even talk to it? Then of course a little bit about architectures as well. I don't think it's as important in this course yet, or at least in this section, because I want to get you on board first. I want to get you to know like basic APIs, but I still want to touch upon architectures, and then of course the different ways to authenticate. I've zoomed in on that deeper. As well, there are in each of these chapters, there's going to be, as you can see, a nice little PDF for you included. And of course, we have the full PDF as well, which currently is 42 pages, but that's still going to grow because the assignments and all of the other stuff is also going to come in here. And like you're used to from us, each chapter is going to have an assignment like this. In your own words, define API and explain why APIs have become so important in today's landscape. Why do I do that? Because I really want that knowledge retention, and I want to make sure that you understand what we're talking about. I give you example answers as well. If you are interested in seeing the model answers, I've included those if that's what you like. But if you would like to just write your own stuff and you like to mail that in to us, yes, of course I'm open to look into that. That's also going to be in the course. And as you can see, several multiple choice questions, at the very least 5, but we try to make it 10 per chapter. So there's good knowledge retention. And then when you're done with chapter 1, we expect to have at least about 5 hours of runtime, which is like about a 30-minute video, then about the 30 minutes that you need to dive into the materials, then maybe about another hour, 2 hours ish to you do your assignments and your multiple choice, maybe another hour, 2 hours. It all depends on how fast you are, of course. With this stuff, but don't think like, oh, it takes me longer than 5 hours, it's bad, or it takes me faster than 5 hours. No, the thing is, this is each their own speed of learning. If you are somebody who's already pretty advanced in like knowing what an API is, and they want to just learn about how to talk to an API before moving on, they can skip chapter 1. That's no problem. It's just that we do require at least you have the basic knowledge of what APIs are and how you can talk to them. That's in this chapter. Besides just the regular curl, Postman, SOAP UI, and Python that we cover here, we also do demos, of course. We show you how these things actually work in these videos. But the thing with this as well is that we've tried to build our own API hacking tool. And we're still working on that, but that's just open source. That's not even part of this course, so I'm just going to put that in here. I'll show maybe a brief like summary of what this thing can do. That's like maybe interesting for you, dear rats. Let's have a little bit of a look. So you know that I like to fuck with Python, right? Like, and so what we've done here is we've tried to oh, this is a different thing. This is a different thing I'm testing. Don't look at that yet. You didn't see anything, okay? If Uncle Rat asks, he doesn't know what you guys don't know what the fuck just happened. So you can see here what we try to do is, why do we make our own API hacking tool? Very simple, because sometimes you only have Python available to you. Sometimes you don't have fancy tools that you can do, like Postman or whatever, and maybe curl might be disabled, but you got Python, or maybe you have curl, but who likes to fuck with curl constantly anyway, right? Are you constantly in your terminal? I'm not, that's for sure. So what can you do in this case? Just download this tool and run it. It's basically a tool, base URL, API endpoint to call, how to authenticate, if there is even authentication. If there's not, it doesn't really matter. But you can see, of course, that it changes based on what you pick. Better the basic authentication, you can enter the password. OAuth2, you can enter your auth token. Then get, post, put the normal, delete, maybe patch should be in there as well. And then you can pick between JSON and forum data. This thing doesn't talk to SOAP UI APIs yet, just so you're aware. But if Ikashukam is watching, that's definitely something to put on the ad list. And then of course you can fuzz things, like you can see right here, fuzzing. I can send that request, but you can see that I have a proxy enabled right here. Why would I have that proxy enabled? Because you can of course proxy this tool through Burp Suite, and especially if you then export Burp Suite certificate and you import it in our tool. We gave you that option, file import Burp Suite certificate. So you can see that there's quite a lot you can do right here. You can also just save sessions and load sessions, export to CSV. So anything that you've had here, you can export that to CSV for later use. And of course you can reopen where you started off, like that, where you left off. That's important because, as you might know, like it's annoying for us that you can't really go into Burp Suite and that you can save things. Like you can't save your settings if you have the community edition, and we know that there are people who still want to work with that. Well, you could save your setting in our tool and you can just go, okay, click, send that request again. Let's see what that gave. Yeah, of course there's an error right now because the items needs to be /items, Mr. Wesley. There we go. So you can send that, and then in Burp Suite to your proxy, you can still see the same. And it's the same, of course, for your target, your sitemap as per usual. And what are we actually testing here is our labs, of course. You're used to the API labs that we've built, probably. If you're not, I will put the link in the description or in the chat. But what our API labs have that I think not a whole lot of other labs have, what we were building, at least up until this point. Yes, even more Python. That's not a Python I need. Come on, dude. What the hell are you doing? Open recent, and we go with APIs for copy. So we have APIs which you will be able to use yourself. Like we can host them for you as well, but we will also put them up for download. And these APIs are meant to guide you through step-by-step OWASP top 10 exploitation. Actual practical exploitation examples on an API that you can try here. That's the point, because there's also a Swagger endpoint, so there's documentation. There we go, very easy to look through all of this, and then with the guide, you know what we're kind of expecting from you on the exam. You'll have about 4 hours to execute on your exam. And it won't be like you'll be strapped for time if you're a decent worker, but if you are a little bit slow, it might take you a little while. Like 4 hours, we try to aim that at where 4 hours is for the people who are a bit slower, that they can still make it, if you know what I mean. So after that, you get about a day to report. With all of this in mind, you'll do your exam and you'll be proctored, of course. The idea here is that we do watch you through your webcam and watch you through the screen. I know that's really annoying. I can fully understand that, but you can also understand that we are going for accreditations here and that we are going for industry recognition. So that's why I want to do things the proper way. And with CNWPP, the whole idea isn't to get industry recognition. With our certified network and website pen testing professional, we try to aim where you can start your own company. That's the thing. One moment, unknown Stoneman. I will put that up in a moment. That's a good question, because I keep forgetting that. Products, all products. But let's go endless. I'm just opening a few, like 2 more spots, because the 2 spots that no, 1 more spot, right? 1 spot was a giveaway, 1 spot was a still. So, like I said, for the giveaways, I don't like to count those in. Invite customer. Oh, don't invite. That's not what I meant. Edit. There we go. All right, dear friends, thank you so much. Really appreciate the patience there. So, 396. Oh, yeah, there we go. So it should be from that 90 off page that it should be available for 1 item now. Let me see. Yep, there we go. I will put that in. Thank you so much, by the way, for the support. I really appreciate it, my friend. So, dear rats, with this in mind, of course, we're not done. You're just like, we're getting started. We want to have your own API hacking tool, but the cool thing comes when you're actually going to use our API hacking tool to, for example, execute these exploits and then get the history to us. That would be a really cool fucking thing, wouldn't it? I mean, I'm just saying, maybe that could get you an extra point. Hint, hint. Now, so the hacking itself, you can execute quite carefully. Now, there are a few more videos that I still need to upload here. But then, of course, also the API document, the API pen testing documentation, the test plan, the test report. I need to go over those things. I need to include them. But just know that they won't be really on the practical hacking part per se. I want you to have that knowledge with you from this, but the certificate won't really prove that you have this kind of knowledge. API firewalls, I also want you to have that knowledge of how an API firewall works versus a normal firewall. I just want you to know the difference there, how things work. But that's basically the syllabus that we've been working on. And of course, like I said, we have the usual things like the quizzes. We have all of the assignments that you're gonna have to do. And you don't have to do them, of course. I mean, I'm not going to obligate anyone to do anything. It's your choice. But I mean, they really help you on the exam. That's the whole goal of this, and also further if you actually want the job. So those things are about the syllabus. If you want to learn this yourself, or if you just want to explore that tool that I've been talking about, these things are open source. I'll also probably put the API labs that we've built, or the practice API labs. I like to put things like that open source. Well, maybe not. Yeah, why not open source? So I'll open source those, and I'll put those also on our labs, because I think that it's really like, that's one of our key advantages. I think those labs are really freaking cool, because we have a lot of them which are freely available. I don't charge anybody to hack on our labs, and they've been online for years on my cost. It's because I tend to use them, of course, for my courses. That's one thing. But I also just love, like, I could also just say, no, only for my courses, and I'll just protect things. No, I don't want that. I want things to be freely available like this. So the same for the syllabus here. That'll also be open, just like always. If you want to go explore that on your own, that's no problem. That's no problem at all. And Orgis, you asshole. There was no fucking seats available. It's okay, dude. It's okay. No problem. He didn't know, Orgis, because I gave away 2 seats. Like, I told Orgis I'm going to open going to open this 2 seats. And then I gave away one, and one was sold. So he didn't know. My apologies for that. Okay, my friends, do you have any questions for me around API hacking specifically? Because I'm curious what your guys' experiences are with API hacking in that regard. The way I see it is, the moment that you talk about real APIs, they're fucking massive, right? Like, these APIs, they're usually not smaller APIs. If I look at, let's say, the Stripe API, I love referring back to the Stripe API because I know them. So, what you first need to do when you come across any API is read the API documentation very carefully. And a lot of people will skip these things like versioning. That's so important, because versions are really, like, they old versions can have exploits which new versions don't have. New versions can have exploits which old versions don't have. You can see here V1 balance. Why wouldn't you try V2 balance? You know what I mean? So That's one thing, but that authentication, that matters a lot. What you see a lot in authentication is you have things like basic authentication, which is just your username and password added in a header, and you just send that along, basic authentication, or API keys. Basic is definitely not used a lot anymore in public, especially not the HTTP, can you imagine? But API keys the same. API keys, they are often used though. Of API keys, what you'll see is though is that people will find an API key, like they'll be testing a website, they'll be finding an API key, and they think it's freaking like the biggest thing ever, where it's just a public API key. So you always need to think, if you find API keys, are those public and private? Now let's do a bit of a demonstration, shall we? Let's go and look at, so ChatGPT, I want to open a new ChatGPT. I want to generate a dork to look for ChatGPT, or let's just say OpenAI API keys in my GitHub repo. It doesn't know that my GitHub repo is all GitHub repos. It even tells me, like, hey, you can refine this further, you can refine it like this. Thanks, ChatGPT. I really appreciate it. SK star star, so that's not an API key we can use. Oh, these are the fake keys. Maybe this one. I don't think so, because it seems a bit too obvious. But what I'm actually doing here is looking for ChatGPT or OpenAI API keys. You can see often SK in here. Check this out. People are dumb, dude. What the hell is wrong with these guys? Okay, now I'm dumb as well because I leak my tokens more than anybody. Let's just not talk about this anymore. Okay, I don't want to fucking talk about it anymore. See, the thing with that, Finch King, is what kind of fuzzing did you really do, if you don't mind me asking? Did you do like the content discovery authenticated or unauthenticated? Do you know what I mean with this? If not, no problem. It's just that I want to explain everything correctly, you know? Thank you, Unknown Stone Mage, man. I really appreciate it. It's really weird that people from the Stone Age are trying to, like, follow education now, but that's okay. I don't mind. You'll have to teach me how to make a fire, though. So, Finch King, I'm just going to assume that you, like, just for everyone's clarity, I'm just going to assume that you don't really know what the difference is between an authenticated scan and an unauthenticated scan. Just a quick explanation. When you do a scan like this, you can, like I said, do the authentication here. How will you do your discovery if you don't know how to authenticate to an API? Because every single endpoint will return nothing. It won't return anything. You may be looking for 404 or whatever, like 403s, but they might exist, they might also not exist. Okay, that's already good. So just not for you, Finch King, but for the rest of the people, if you ever want to do scans, add these keys as headers. So add the API key as a header, add the authentication key, the authentication token as a headers. That'll really already help you. If you don't, then of course the API isn't going to return anything. The second thing is word lists. What kind of word lists have you been using? Were they specifically aimed at APIs? I'm assuming yes. I'm assuming probably, right? Like the thing what I always tend to look for at French King is documentation. API docs, Swagger, Swagger docs, Swagger.json. You know, those things really matter to me. Those are already important. So if I can do that authenticated and I don't find anything, well, that's already weird, right? Because there's always documentation. And with documentation, like the thing is, APIs are application programming interfaces, but other people will need to interface with that through their applications, right? They will need to build the applications on the other side. So there's always going to be like some kind of documentation. And you also have like API docs word lists. And if you don't have them, you can generate them. Jesus, API documentation word list. Uh, that's good. That's good, Finch King, that you always add the bearer token. But make sure, of course, that you need a bearer token because sometimes, and I'm not saying that like you didn't pay attention just for everyone else. Sometimes you need bearer tokens. Sometimes you need API keys because when you work with an application and you log into an application, it's different than when you communicate with an API. Applications are like stateful. They remember sessions through browsers, whereas an API really isn't. Like an API, it doesn't really remember sessions like that. It assumes that the browser, quote unquote, is what some other person's going to build on the other end and consume the APIs. So when you think about it that way, you really need to also take into account like what am I really testing here? Am I testing microservices or am I testing an API gateway? Does it really matter that much? Yes, it does. Because sometimes you'll have like api.hackerats.com, right? That's just the API, and then on the slash login, then you get the login API. And that's just a microservice. Then that login API will consist of different endpoints within it. So to find those endpoints, you need to do your, well, how do I say that? Your recursion. You need to do recursive. That's the thing I was looking for. You need to do like recursive scanning, of course. Like you go in, you find your APIs, your microservices, and you find the endpoints that are accessible through the free internet, which you're basically trying to access, right? Then on the other hand, you can also have microservices where it's like login.hackerats.com and then slash API slash v2. And that's different for fuzzing because then you're actually fuzzing for the first part of your link. You're fuzzing for that. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, sorry. My memory is really fleeting here. But you're basically fuzzing for the subdomain. And then you're fuzzing in that subdomain for different endpoints, different microservices. Hey, no problem, dude. I really appreciate you asking the question, bro. It's a really valid one. I've seen that before. Fuzzing APIs is one of the more difficult things, I believe, especially if you really want to do it correctly, you need to really think about what you're actually facing there. But that being said, it's definitely not the most effective technique out there. That's for sure, because you could also do things like, if they're freely available on the internet, do dorking. Or you could do things like going to the Wayback Machine, for example. Maybe you'll find some extra cool stuff there. Another tip I can give you, Finch King, is if they have like endpoints which are all on like v2, v3 or whatever, you can try a version lower and try a version higher. Like this get v1, maybe they have v2. So that's something you could also try here for all of these different endpoints that they have as a v2. Now, when you're actually testing, you can see that all of these different objects that you're referencing here, because all of these different things, believe me, they are objects, or at least functions on objects. You're going to see that they all have properties within the requests, and you need to test all of these properties independently of their functionality. Only when you know the functionality of all of the properties can you start playing with the full picture. And it's important that you go through all of them. You look at the amount, you think what the amount could be. Oh, maybe you could try a negative amount here. Maybe I could try an amount that's absurdly high and try some kind of overflow. I can see currencies here, and I can see currencies in the connect reserved. What happens if the connect reserved currency is different than the available currency? So these are just response attributes, of course. If you want to, like, this is more what I was talking about. So let's see here, events, v2, this is a good one. Retrieve an event object. So you can see here that they are actually, for this event, going to the v2 slash core slash events. Test if that's also available on v1. And then in the request itself, there isn't a whole lot. I'm just looking for something which is some stuff in the request. So you can see that they talk about the object itself with all of the properties to an object. But did you know that you can also, of course, test all these properties independently, but fuzz for them independently as well? So when you're fuzzing, like when you're fuzzing for SQL injection, say, let's say, don't fuzz where you're testing this and this and this and this and everything at the same time for a SQL injection attack vector. Why not? Because the created with that SQL attack vector might trigger something which would normally have never been triggered and would have allowed the SQL injection on object to go through. But because the error now occurs on created or on ID, the object SQL injection is never discovered if you fuzz everything fully in one go. Hope that makes sense. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. Does anybody else have questions? Because that's a really good question there, mate. No, Wes. That's not what you want to show. That's not what you want to show. So, what else do I want to show? There's more. I love to talk about that authentication, right? You guys have heard me talk about that ad nauseum. But what does that actually mean for us? Like 127. Let's go for this. Is this still? Oh, of course. Gotta first kill this. Then start it up. Otherwise, it will not work. There we go. So I try to include APIs which actually test that authentication and show you how that works with code examples. These code examples can be made, of course, and now it says get localhost, but it's based on the base URL. So if we have this online, it'll show the proper link, but it'll actually show you proper code examples of how to make requests with Python, how to make requests with Python that have a basic authentication and then token based. Then we'll also have let me see real quick. It's probably in the same folder, I believe. Yep, it is. OAuth and API keys, similar things. So you can see here, OAuth like flow, very simple. Like OAuth is difficult, don't get me wrong. OAuth 2 is just difficult. But if you really think about OAuth 2, what that all entails, like you have the OAuth 2 playground, which like you can, oh no, that's not the one that I need. OAuth 2, this is the one. You have the playground here in which you can see how all of these flows would work. I haven't included all of these flows. I've just included the OAuth 2.0 simplified version. So just so you know, it's the simplified version. It's very simple. You first generate a secret with this client ID and the client secret. You get a token. With the token, you make a request to authenticate. So basically, I try to go over the most beginner-friendly stuff, getting you introduced into APIs, and I talk about stuff like this as well in the course. Of course, I think it's important that we mention this more. That everything should be fuzzed independently. People seem to don't do that, and when you talk about things like SQL map, when you talk about things that are testing for different injections or whatever you're fuzzing for, add your authentication headers to that and make sure that you respect the request rate limiting as well. That's something that in our tool is a little bit missing still, that rate limiting. We'll have to add on to that. But did you make this cert look fancy? I'm not gonna show that yet. I'm not gonna show that yet. That's a good one. That's a good one. So fuzzing in GraphQL, that's a very particular one. That's a good one that you ask it. So GraphQL is different than other, like, it's not SOAP, it's not REST, but this is a nice fuzzer that I found recently, and I'll put it in the chat. It's basically the same thing. So it's a fuzzing tool for GraphQL, and the thing is that I think there's a no, I don't think it has the word list built in, right? Did I load this in? So you can load in your own custom word lists in this one. So that's a nice one. And then there's also, or is it GraphQLer? That's the one. Yep. the GraphQLer. I don't know if you've ever seen this one. Let me get it on screen. This is also a very good tool to fuzz your basically your GraphQL endpoint. So you could see here that this guy is running his own GraphQL on his own local server. It's fuzzing basically, and you can see that boom, SQL injection detected, path injection detected. So it has different things that it can fuzz for. This is maybe, should I link this as well? Yeah, of course, why not? There we go, put that in the chat. If you'll find that useful, hopefully. But these are some tools which I could recommend for the rest. Like, if you have these, that's sufficient, I believe. I don't think you should add like 200 tools to your tool list. Only when you know the basics of these tools and when you're able to start working with them, then can you say, okay, now I've used them 500 times and I found this issue or that issue with it, and maybe another tool is better. Let me just have a little bit of a check. But GraphQL is a great tool for that. Another good question. Thank you so much. I see members gang saying I have 002 and 002B. So the 002, I should put an A in front of that, but that's supposed to be the part 1. Good question, my friend. And thank you so much, by the way. I really appreciate that. But those courses are meant to be where there's one major course which is more about the initial attacks on main app, and then there's going to be a future follow-up 002C which is going to go into the code of it, like the real code, like with several languages, JavaScript, Node.js and Python, C#, and no, what am I saying? C#, ASP.NET, and PHP, of course. So with those languages, we want to show you the actual exploits and what they're worth. And a later one, stage 002B is going to be the course where we're going to go into broad scope with examples of how to set up your own attack frameworks, and then to expand on that, of course. We're going to go into concepts of programming where it's like, okay, now set up, first of all, you need to know how to hack, and then afterwards you can set up this automation framework that has logging, that has error handling, that has output handling, all of the magical stuff. Oh, that's a good question, Jared. I try to make it as realistic as possible. I can't show it on a real target, of course, but I show everything on my labs. That's the location that I show most of my stuff on. I try to build like some more initial labs where it's like, okay, now let's explore remote cross-site scripting and XSS playground, stuff like that. And then the full systems, here I try to more like emulate the proper system, especially Rapside 2 is cool, dude. In this, you literally get like random exploits every time you open a session. So you can see now that I have 4 exploits on here, right? If I go here and I go copy link address and I go into my private browser, I only have 2 exploits at the moment. So there's like random exploits for every time you open a new session on this, or you can just reset your exploits as well. And of course you can show your config if you'd like to cheat. Of course you don't, right? Alright, what else do we show our stuff on? We try to show it on Radside a lot. Radside is one of the bigger applications that we've built, because I love to hunt on business to business applications. And this is like contacts, invoices, orders. This is trying to emulate the business to business application. But what we've currently been developing is CAPI, which is the initial certificate for API hacking, which goes over what is an API, how to talk to an API, then how to exploit an API. And why is that so important for me? Because APIs are the backbone of our modern infrastructure. Pretty much everything talks to an API, right? So like if you can hack an API, basically you can hack other stuff as well, except for platform specific stuff, like cross-site scripting, for example. That's more platform specific, because you're like, even the APIs don't care about your XSS attack vector. It opens up because JavaScript execution is possible in your browser, so it's a platform specific bug. Whereas like SQL injection, that's more server sided. That's going to be a lot on API level as well, where you can look for those types of things. But knowing how to really hack an API and being able to prove that to yourself mostly is important, but also to the community. That's why we have like these APIs. You're going to get 10 exploits from the OWASP top 10, and you need to find 7. you can find duplicates. So SQL injection can occur twice, just on a different API. That's the thing. But with the APIs that we have been building over here, it isn't the intention to do that too often, though it can happen, of course. But it's more like, okay, can you identify at least 7 critical vulnerabilities from the 10? Well, then we might have a passing chance in that, of course. That's the thing. Except if your report sucks, that's a different thing, of course. That we can't pass. I mean, I'm not going to be as strict as on CNWPP, where I will fail you for the, like, literally on CNWPP, we've tried to make it as lifelike as possible, where it's like, okay, you want to start up your own company, you want to become a pen tester in a bigger team where you're a management lead role, that's possible, but like that's where we aim CNWPP more at. So I was like, always like, why aren't many people taking this exam? I don't get it, but yeah, of course, it's huge, it's giant. That's the thing. It's at least a 2-day endeavor if you want to go through it fully for the exam. So yeah, there's a lot to say about that. So that's why we try to make it a little bit smaller here. It's a 4-hour exam. We won't be. It tells you a little bit about the difficulty. If you have to identify 10 exploits in 4 hours, it's not the most difficult thing you've ever seen, but it will be lifelike. So it's going to be a theme park emulator because oh no, I hate those, right? If you it could be something like a web shop for cheese that has built an API. It could be something like it could be anything, but really realistic with endpoints that properly represent something. About 20 endpoints is what you can expect on those exams. And that course is currently, that whole certification thing is currently on sale for just $10. So if you feel like that would probably be my recommendation to start with, since most of the other courses we're kind of trying to, not per se retire, but we want to make them into one bigger bundle. So if you buy the 002 version, then you'll have everything we've done before, or sorry, the endless bundle, I mean. Then you'll have everything we've done before and done in the future and then blah blah blah. It's a big ass bundle, but it's not always for sale, that's the thing. So that's why we have this on sale now for 90% off. If you want, I can get you that coupon. If Google will allow me, there we go. Are we there yet? Yep, we're there yet. All right. And of course, you guys know as well as anybody and always that whatever materials we will use for this, we're going to put it online as video material only. So not the assignments, not the multiple choice, the labs, yeah, of course. But as video material, we will put things online on YouTube as well, like one bigger stuff like we've been doing with all of the others. But it's just that the certification, that's where it's at. We did do a decent amount of effort to make really good exams for you guys, which will be tested a lot more in the coming days, because we have about 20 more days before that thing launches. Oh god, it's gonna be alright, it's gonna be alright, good. It's gonna be alright. Chill. Ladies and gentlemen, do you have any further questions for me around this topic, or even the topic of API hacking? It can be, or anything for that matter. I'm open for your questions, so you have me now. Grab your chance. Let's see. Well, in the moment, going to add a little bit of a mid-roll. I'm going to add a little bit of an advertisement so I can take a toilet break, but I will be right back, my friends. Thank you so much. Alright, let's see what we have here in terms of questions. Yeah, of course, no problem, members, gang. That's no problem at all. Just send us an email if you'd like at support@thexssrat.com. Just tell us that you'd like to have access to those things, and we can give you guys access through the web interface of Google Drive. That's no problem, mate. Should I look for origin IP when pen testing? So the thing with any type of WAF is it's just a rule set. It's just a rule set, just like an API firewall. It's just a rule set based on API specifications. A WAF is going to be just a specification of like a rule set, you know. If this then that, if you see this and that, if it is this regular expression matches, then this, then that. It's nothing more than that. And a lot of people seem to be, oh, this is a really complex, awesome, yeah, it has some logic in it and stuff like that, but it's a machine, it can be beaten. So when you're up against the WAF, what's most important is that you're going to verify exactly what is blocked, exactly what is blocked. So you need to be able to tell me this attack vector is blocked, this one is not blocked, this one is blocked, this one is not blocked. Why does that matter? Because you need to look for common denominators between the ones that are blocked and not blocked. Then you can say, if I do this, it's probably blocked. If I do that, then it's probably not blocked. And if I can then combine the things that are not blocked into an attack vector, that's how you do WAF bypasses. I hope that answers your question, but it's a good one. That's a very good one, mate. Ah, yes, for sure, Finch Gang. So the thing is, I don't know exactly what you hunt for, but anytime you hunt on Hacker1, you're going to have a hell of a lot of competition, right? Like pretty much everybody and their grandmother knows about HackerOne. So maybe try some more regional bug bounty platforms like Yes We Hack or Integrity. Those are some bigger ones in Belgium, but there are more popping up every day. So maybe you could try looking at those where there's a little bit less of an audience, but they still have pretty good programs. That way you can pick what you'd like. For example, I really love business to business myself because I love broken access control. I love IDORs, I love business logic, etc. So all of those things, since I love them a lot, I will look for business to business applications. And Integrity has a lot of them where there's also APIs attached to them. And these APIs are usually big, like big APIs with multiple microservices that are all functioning in their own way. So it's always a challenge to always even just explore those programs, you know what I mean? Even fully get to the bottom of everything. And that's the real challenge, because if you then functionally fully know how to use this thing, I can guarantee you that you've left 99% of the other hackers behind. They don't care about functionally using an application. Why would they? They're hackers, right? I love seeing this because I do. As much as I hate seeing you do the same as everyone else, I'll happily have everybody looking for technical vulnerabilities while I look for the more functional ones, which require you to test an application fully, which are bothersome, which are annoying. Do you think I want to learn about the business rules of an HR application? My friend, I don't give a fuck, but I'll happily take their money. So that's the thing with these. Like, if you work with bigger companies, business to business applications especially, it's just a lot less touched surface, and there's a lot more than people make it out to be. Everybody's like business, like broad scope is where it's at. You need to do broad scope. And broad scope is to find attack surface. That's what it's good for, but that's about it. What do you do when you find that attack surface but you don't know your ass from your face when it comes to hacking? So I'm not saying that that's you. Absolutely not, Fitchkin. Absolutely not. On the contrary, you're probably one of the brighter people out there, because to even find a duplicate, hats off to you, Finchking. To even find a duplicate, that I will bow down to you on any day of the week. Believe me, I see a lot of people, and a lot of people struggle to even get to that stage, which means you are capable of finding bugs. Use that as fuel, because you know that you can find a bug. If there's something that you should take away from this, anything, it is that you have the ability to find it. You're just doing it on the wrong platform. There's just too many other people around. Now try that on something which has a lot less hackers. I can tell you, integrity seems challenging, right? One of the biggest bug bounty platforms in Belgium, there aren't that many super active hackers. It says 125,000 researchers. Do you know how easy it was for me to get into the integrity top 20? Like, it was ridiculously easy because I reported nothing but broken access control, and either for a month I got like an ungodly amount of vulnerabilities and I wasn't in there. It's not. I thought that there would be like a lot of hackers. The thing is, there's a lot of hackers, but not active at one time. Hackers move between platforms, so even if you see top hackers, they're like, oh, then I go to this platform, then I go to that platform, then I go to that platform. And if you look at platforms which are less populated, I'm sure that you're gonna have more success, bro. I'm sure that that's probably your biggest problem, is finding that platform that fits your needs. Can I help on your labs in my free time? I'm a software engineer also. Of course, always, Jared. If you have ideas for labs, you can definitely send them in. Support at thexssrat.com. I would love to, like, the thing is, I can't pay you for this stuff, of course, but I will definitely credit you and I will give you free courses for that, of course. Like, if you guys contribute to that kind of stuff, I really appreciate it from all directions, really do. And I love to give you guys credit for that kind of stuff. I really do. I mean, it's only natural at that point, I believe. So from this point onward, anytime that you guys are looking at a bug bounty platform, probably the first question you should be asking yourself is this the right one for me? And it's really difficult to find good ones, right? Like, if I go and Google bug bounty platforms, let's see how many there are. So we have bug cloud, yes, we have bug bounty, that's hacker1. Then we have cyber, no, that's just the thing at the top. They have Synac and integrity. Integrity we already counted. Look at here, open source collection of bug bounty platforms. Whee! So there's plenty, dude, and I'm pretty sure that there's still more on it that are not on here. So there's plenty, man. There's definitely plenty. This is awesome. So if you are interested in that, don't hesitate to like try to move away from this kind of stuff. Or like, with all due respect to HackerOne, I will probably never hack on there again due to the bad interactions I had with one of their triagers. I won't go into that in detail, but that is something that puts me off of a platform for sure, any day of the week. Anyway, my friends, thank you so much for joining me today, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate it. I really do. Thank you so much. I'm going to end it here though, because I have to wake up tomorrow at 7. So I have about 7.5 hours of sleep if I go now. That should be plenty. There we go. Hey, I'm actually on bed in time for once. I should stream more often. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to end it here and I really appreciate it. See you in the next one. Bye bye, ladies. Okay.